Welcome to this presentation on P's body paragraphs in Major Essay 2, Planning to be Heard. We're assuming that by the time you're listening to this presentation, you've listened to the presentation that talks generally about P's body paragraphs. So if you haven't already listened to that one, stop, go back and listen to that one, and then come back, and this presentation will make more sense to you. So this presentation, what do P's paragraphs look like in this Major Essay 2? So we talked in the general lecture about P standing for point, evidence, analysis, summary. And this is what it looks like in a body paragraph, like you would see on an essay map or an outline that we use for this course. Now, in Major Essay 2, we have additional requirements or more specific requirements specifically for the evidence and the analysis. We want you to do very specific things with that. So that's what we'll spend a lot of time in this presentation on, but we'll go through all of the P's as well. So for the point is the topic sentence. It tells us what the whole body paragraph is going to be about. And for Major Essay 2, it needs to mention that strategy that the whole body paragraph is going to be about. Ethos, pathos, logos, or whatever strategy you choose. And when you're writing that topic sentence, you need to make sure that those keywords appear. In this example body paragraph, it's from the example essay, Creating Miss Clean. And the topic sentence is, a potential pitfall I need to avoid when trying to convince my sister to clean is to stay focused on the problem rather than on the solution. So that first bit that I underlined, the convince my sister to clean, that's where the writer is reminding us what the larger argument is about and showing that connection to the thesis. The second bit that's underlined, the to stay focused part, that is the strategy that we're going to be discussing in the body paragraph. So the keywords made it in to the topic sentence. In evidence, you in Major Essay 2 specifically need to explain the strategy that you are discussing in the paragraph. You can explain your own understanding of it or give a quotation from the source or do both. The purpose of the evidence for this essay is to make sure the reader understands the strategy. So the strategy in this one, in this example, is focus on the problem rather than the solution. It's a pitfall to avoid. And so the evidence needs to explain what exactly that staying focused on the problem rather than the solution is all about. And because it's a little more complex, there's a little bit more evidence maybe than you would normally see in a body paragraph. Sometimes you have more, sometimes you have less. As long as you have it and you treat it well, you're good. So the portions that are underlined on this slide are specifically quotations. That's the form of evidence they came in. This next part is the writer is kind of explaining it and applying that evidence a little bit. So it's almost analysis, but it's building that evidence and explaining it more kind of within the context of the argument that the writer is having with the sister. And I want to highlight these introductions to the quotations. This is extraordinarily important when you're doing evidence. You have to show where the evidence came from. And when it's quotations, you really have to show it. So in this first quotation, it starts with, according to Betsy Kaufman in her TED Talk, 4 Tips to Kickstart Honest Conversations at Work. We get the information who the author is, that it was a TED Talk, and what the title of the TED Talk is. Sometimes the writer might also want to include who Betsy Kaufman is, why we should listen to her. The fact that it was in a TED Talk kind of implies that we should listen to her, but you want to add all of that information to build her credibility or her ethos, which in turn makes us want to trust you more because you're using this credible person to support your argument. And then because the writer had already explained or introduced Betsy Kaufman, the next quote they used from her could just say Kaufman states. And then you'll notice that it has that 7:31. That's a timestamp from a video. So you include all of those clues and signals that this is a quote and ideas and exact words from other people, and it helps you avoid plagiarism. All right, the next part is analysis, and there are actually two kinds of analysis that you have to do in Major Essay 2. The first kind of analysis you need to give is to explain how you plan to apply that strategy. So that strategy in this body paragraph is avoiding the pitfall of focusing on the problem rather than the solution. So the author explained how they plan to avoid that pitfall. It's because the argument hasn't happened, they're kind of predicting what they will need to do or what it could look like. So it's talking about the future and preparing for that argument. And then the second kind of analysis, now that you've told us your plan, how do you think it's going to work? So you're going to give us an explanation of how effective your plan would be. You're kind of answering the question of how would the audience react to that strategy and plan? And then finally, you give the summary. Remind us why it all matters. Tie it together. Give us a summary sentence and make sure you mention the strategy. I meant to highlight it, the keywords, but if you remember the topic sentence, the keywords were the focus on the problem rather than solution, reference to the argument with the sister. So let's look at our summary sentence here. By focusing on the solution and avoiding too much focus on the problem, that's that keyword there of the strategy, my sister will be much more engaged in our conversation, more likely to help clean the house. So it refers to the argument as well. Spot on summary sentence. So this is how P's work specifically in Major Essay 2. I highly recommend you read this example essay, and please make sure to reach out when you have any questions.